what's up? My name's Moose from Grandma's House Audio. Check me out, grandmashouseaudio.com. Today, I'm doing a little project that I thought would be cool to share, making some studio panels for my studio. So the reason why you'd want to build an acoustic panel for your studio is to cut down reverberation and help flatten the frequency response in your room. Then the reason why you'd want to do that, say it's in a room that you're mixing and listening to through your studio monitors, you want to hear it with the least amount of reflections as possible in your room, and you want the frequency response to be as flat as possible, just so you're hearing everything that's coming through your speakers as true as possible. So this is a panel that I actually bought from a company called GIK Acoustics. I recommend if you don't want to build your own or you're not handy, or just want to, whatever your reason is, I recommend getting panels from them. This is a 242 panel from GIK Acoustics. They have tons of other panels that do tons of other stuff, but this is pretty much what I'm going to be building today. I'm going to be building two of them, but this is one of the ones that I finished. So as you can see, I made mine a little bit smaller because I want the coverage to be a little bit different on the wall, but they're pretty much the same. So I'm going to show you how I did it, and hopefully it helps you out. Okay, so these are the backs of the panels. This is the panel that I got from GIK Acoustics, and this is the back of my panel. Obviously theirs looks a lot better, but since it's the back, I'm not too concerned about it. The difference, they have this kind of, I don't know, this weird cloth cover for the back just to kind of cover up this acoustical insulation, which, by the way, this acoustical insulation is an equivalent to the Owens Corning 703, I think is what it is. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it's the same stuff that GIK uses. Also, I'm kind of just building it off of their design. If you notice here, there's about, looks about an inch gap. So when this here is sitting against the wall, there's actually about an inch of a gap between the actual insulation and the wall. I did the same thing. It might be a little harder to tell because I wrapped my cloth around there, but there's actually about an inch and a half on mine. This insulation is about 2 inches thick. So with that being 2 inches thick and having an inch and a half, the whole concept of doing that is so when the sound is actually coming through the panel, so this is the front, it's flat, so the sound is actually going to come, through the panel, and then when it comes through, it has, an inch and a half gap between here and the wall, so there's some airspace. So I guess the reasoning behind it is to actually, it just helps cut down on the reverberation for whatever reason, just because there's that air gap. Now there are panels that just sit right flat against the wall, and I think they work fine too, but I'm kind of going up to this design because I think it works well. Another reason too is they use these eye hooks here, so you can put a piece of this foil wire, which I recommend because it bends pretty well and stays its shape. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that helps wrap these together well. But with that gap being there too, you can kind of put these on the inside, so when you hang them, they'll actually hang pretty flush against the wall. Here's one of the GIK panels that's up against the wall now, so my wall is kind of crooked and I don't have it very tight, but it would kind of sit like that. Okay, so this is my other panel. I haven't covered it with cloth yet, but as you can see, I just used, this is just 1x4 wood. So with this insulation being 2 inches thick, that gives me an inch and a half. And I say an inch and a half because it's not actually 4 inches wide. I think it's, well, I guess it'd be 3.5. So all I really did was I knew that I wanted to cover 45 inches of space. So each of these panels from inside corner to inside corner is 22.5 inches. So I just, I'm sure you can figure it out. You just cut your wood to kind of fit flush. There's my cuts. Then I just screwed it together on top. Pretty straightforward. And then on the back, I put these little leftover strips of wood. I kind of, cut them short, like in half. So, this insulation has something to kind of butt up against. The only thing I'd recommend, I don't really like how I did this design. I would actually recommend buying an extra piece of wood or something so you can actually build a frame that goes, you know, all the way around instead of just these little pieces. I think they'll work okay, but just because I think it would just help hold it in better. Another thing too that the GIK acoustic panels have is a bar that goes across the middle. These panels are a little smaller, so I don't think it'll matter too much, but I think it would help hold it in. So after I did that, I'm just going to show you how I cover it with cloth. Okay, so this is the cloth I'm actually going to be using, which it's just old curtains that were left here when I moved into this house. And I don't know why I kept them, but I'm glad I did, because the back of them happens to be the same color as or close to the same color at least, to the panels that I bought from GIK, so now they'll all match. As far as cloth goes, I'm pretty sure you can get it pretty cheap at Walmart. I said pretty twice. The Walmart near me, when I went to go get the cloth before I realized I still had these, it wasn't wide enough for what I needed. Because I was actually originally planning on building one big panel that covered 45 inches, but I decided to do two that covered 22.5. Long story, not a big deal. But if you go to like place like Joann Fabrics, maybe even Michael's, I'm not sure, any place that sells fabric, you know, they'll have those colors that you'll need. And actually, as far as the fabric or the cost of the panels themselves, the fabric is actually the most expensive. The wood, I think I had to buy 3 8-foot pieces, so they were I think $2 or $3 a piece at Lowe's. This acoustical insulation I was telling you about is actually the equivalent to the Owens Corning 703, I think is what it is. You can actually find that on Amazon really cheap. I think you can get a whole box of 2x4 like pieces of that. I think they come in a box. I think it's 50 or 60 bucks maybe. I'm not really too sure, but just search Amazon, I'm sure you'll find it. But this is how I cover the panel with the cloth. So I got my cloth laid out on the floor, and I got my frame for the panel on top. So what I did last time, I actually had, you know, since this is a curtain, there's 2 pieces of cloth to it. I want the back to show the white so it matches the other panel, but I'm also going to use this as well. This time I'm leaving it sewn together, whereas before I actually cut the pieces apart and stapled them on there separately. The reason why I'm doing that is because this is actually pretty thin, and this is kind of like a coarse, like burlap-y type fabric. So when you stretch it over, you can actually see the wood. And I'm kind of particular, so I don't want it to show through. So when you do that, you double it up, it doesn't show through. So yeah, that's just me. But this time I'm not going to cut it, just because I'm going to try to do it all at once. Hopefully it works out fine. But yeah, so what I found out that works the best is I'll kind of, you know, lay it out and, you know, just kind of make sure it's even. It's kind of wrinkled and stuff, but I found that it's best to kind of work with the long side first. And also another thing to keep in mind, when you're buying fabric, you know, I said that the inside from this corner to that inside corner is 22.5 inches. You're definitely going to need a lot more than 22.5 inches. So, you know, because you got, you know, this is 3/4 of an inch, and it's also 3/4 of an inch over there. Then you got, you know, 3.5 inches on both sides. So make sure you have enough fabric. There's the wood. It comes out about another 3 inches. That's probably a lot more than I need. On this side, there's tons of extra, but it's okay. I got it for free, so not a big deal. Okay, so anyways, I like to start with the long sides. I feel like it works the best. I'll just kind of pull this taut like this, just so it's even on one side. So if you get your fabric from a store, you know, use the factory edge or the edge that they cut, hopefully it's straight. It might not be, but just try to make it even. And then after I do that, I'll kind of just pull it over, you know, and I have a nice little line here to use, so I'll kind of just make sure that's even wherever I'm going to staple it. You know, I'll go around and staple this side. You don't have to pull it too tight, just make sure that this side is even. I'm going to go ahead and staple and show you that. Okay, so now I got the first side stapled. If you can see that, I made it pretty even. I had to work around that bump there because I, you know, kind of did that half-ass frame. So that's all pretty even. I don't know if you can see too, it's still pretty wrinkled in some spots right there. Like I said, when this first side doesn't matter too much, just as long as it's pulled tight, that it's even and it's tight, like width-wise. You don't have to pull on it extremely tight, but you just don't want like crazy, well, crazy wrinkles like that. But when I go to pull it around this corner here, you'll see that it kind of, you know, it's loose and now it's tight. So now I go to the other side. This is the other long side. And then I'm just going to fold it over. I'm not going to be able to do it with the camera in my hand, but I'll just kind of fold it over. And I'm just going to, you know, I might have to like lift this up a little bit, and I'll just keep kind of pulling it. I'll start in one corner and then just, you know, pull it as tight as I can. And be careful that you don't rip the fabric. I know that sometimes it can be kind of thin and rip easily, so just be careful with that. But you want to pull it as tight as you can, fold it over, hold it as tight as you can, and staple it. Once you staple it, do it, you know, move down a couple inches, pull as tight as you can, staple it. Move down, pull as tight as you can, staple it, and move all the way down to this corner, and I'll show you that when it's done. Okay, cool. So this is the second side. I got it pulled nice and tight and stapled in all the way down from corner to corner. And then now, as you can see, on this side down here was where those wrinkles were. A lot of them came out because I pulled it so tight. So now what you want to do is work on the other end. I'm going to work on this end with the that doesn't have so much cloth, and you're just going to do the same thing. You're almost going to kind of treat it as the first side, the very first side you did long ways. The only thing is, you don't want to pull this super tight. You just want it to be, you know, kind of taut. So with this extra cloth, what I actually do is kind of just fold it like a present almost, but I'll fold it in a way so it's actually like straight instead of like a, you know, an angle like that or whatever. You're just gonna you know, fold the corners the way you need it. I found out, at least the way that I do it, when I do this, I kind of just, you know, pull this just a little bit tight just to get the wrinkles out of that on the side here. Pull it just a little bit tight, and I'll put a staple, 2 staples right on the very edge, and then when I go to fold it, kind of holds it in place and keeps it a little neater looking when I go to fold it like that. You know, and then you're just going to fold it over, start in this corner, staple all the way down, and you don't want to pull it as tight as you can. Like I said, you just want to kind of pull it taut. But then when you go to do the other side down there, that's when you want to pull it as tight as you can. Okay, cool. So now I got the first short end stapled in and pulled pretty tight. Here's the corners, how I folded them over. Didn't turn out too bad. Still got some wrinkles. Hopefully it'll come out when I pull the other side tight. So I went ahead and cut off the extra slack on here, and then basically same thing how I said before. You know, just kind of pull this tight, staple it 2 or 3 times just so this end here is pulled tight on the side, and you know, do that little fold and make it neater than what I just showed you. You know, and just pull it all over, start in the corner, pull it as tight as possible, and then hold it, staple it a couple more inches down, hold it tight, staple it all the way down, and then it'll be done. Okay, cool. So now I got the final side pulled really tight and stapled. I got the corners good. You know, the hole on both sides, it's all pretty good. There's a little bit of a wrinkle here. I think it's just the cloth from underneath, but let's flip it up, check it out. Not too bad. So I'll just have to take a lint roller to it because there's some dust and stuff on it. Now, when you get little wrinkles like this, you can always, you know, kind of pull them and add another staple if it bothers you, which it will probably bother me, so I'll probably fix that. I just try to make them look as professional as possible. But so yeah, so there's the one I just showed you how to make, and here's the one I showed you at the beginning of the video, and here's the panel from GIK. So as you can see, they look pretty good. Okay, so I hope what I showed you helped. That's how you build a pretty basic spot panel, I think is what they call it. Just an FYI, there's tons of other kind of panels out there that you know, go in corners that trap bass, and there's tons of information and tons to learn about acoustically treating your room that you mix in. So I definitely recommend. I'm not affiliated or get any kind of commission or anything like that from GIK Acoustics, but they're a really good company. They have really good people that work there. They have tons and tons of free information where I got most of mine on their website. So even if you don't buy anything from them, they have tons of free information. There's tons of other free information on the internet that you can find out. You'll probably have to do other things like analyze your room, buy a special microphone, and it does. You can download this free program called Room EQ Wizard that, you know, plays all these frequencies and stuff. You set up your mic and it tells you what you need to do, and then the information that you get offline is, then you got to kind of figure out where you need to put your panels and all the other stuff. But that's how you build an acoustic panel. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, email me, joshmoose@grandmashouseaudio.com, or leave a comment. Thanks.